Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you once again to the Resident and Family Support Council meeting that we host on the second and the fourth Tuesday of every month at 3 o'clock. Just as a reminder, the link that you use to get into today's meeting is the same link that we use for all of our meetings. So know that you can use that link to be able to attend every meeting that we have on Tuesdays and Thursday on the second Tuesday and the fourth Thursday of each month at 3 o'clock. We also recognize that people can't always make these meetings, so know that we do put the recordings onto YouTube. And so we have, I see Stephen is going to start putting all those links into the chat for everybody, so that you can access that. If you can't make a meeting ever, you can always click on our YouTube channel and see all of those meetings. I do want you to know that today is the 99th recording that we will be putting up there after this meeting. So our next meeting is going to be our 100th meeting. So I want everybody to be ready. We'll do a little bit of celebrating because we're really proud of all the contributions that people have given to us to be able to bring these meetings to you. And that was whether people spoke for us, whether people did some research for us, whether they were on the planning committee to help pick out the topics. These meetings have been a success because of the people that have helped in making sure that we could bring these meetings to you. And I do also want to thank the Illinois Pioneer Coalition. They have provided us with the YouTube channel so that we can host these meetings via YouTube. We do not have a YouTube channel, a Zoom account with the state of Illinois. So we're able to bring these meetings through Zoom by the Illinois Pioneer Coalition, donating their Zoom account for us to be able to use this. So thank you to them for allowing us to have that. So with us having our 99th video today after today's meeting, I also want to share with everybody that it was 6 years ago this month that COVID happened, where people started getting sick and the world started to shut down. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because these meetings became a result of that. A year later, after everyone was trying to figure out what was going on and COVID was still happening, and we were going through our highs and our lows of people getting sick and the outbreaks happening, and people being denied access to their loved ones in nursing homes or long-term care communities across the state and the country. We recognized that people needed a support mechanism and we needed to empower people with information because there was a lot of rumors going around, just a lot of misinformation. So that's why these meetings originally started. And then with that, because of the response and the empowerment that people were having because of the topics from these meetings, we have continued to do these. And so it's been 5 years now that we have been doing these meetings. And like I said, and we're able to bring to you, next meeting will be our 100th recording that we'll be able to bring to you as well. So what we are going to be doing today is I actually was going to be interviewing a mother who has a son in a long-term care community. He is at a community for developmentally disabled individuals in Southern Illinois. And I was going to be interviewing her on site with her son. He was going to be a part of it. But unfortunately, she got stuck in New York yesterday because of that tragic accident that took 2 pilots' lives and injured many other people. She got stuck in New York because the airport shut down for her flight. So she was rescheduled on a flight, which actually I just was texting with her. She's boarding the airplane right now. So she could not join us today, but we still got together yesterday afternoon, her and I interviewed her and recorded that. So I will be sharing that with you in just a moment. I do want to encourage everybody, since typically we try to encourage conversation happening through the course of what we're talking about for the day. And I know we're not going to be able to do it because of the recording. So please write questions, responses, any information that you want to share with others, whether it's a clapping of your hands because you like what she's saying, whether it's a question that you have about something that she makes a comment on or I make a comment on, put it into the chat and we'll be able to respond to those at the end. Okay. So I will go ahead and I will start that recording right now so
Haley,
that we can. Yes, Stephen, did you have?
a real quick request to anyone who puts a question in the chat. Since we may not get to that question until after the recording is over, if you
Mhm.
could make sure that the context of the question is clear when you put it in, because sometimes we think of a question and it only makes sense in that moment, what's being
Right.
discussed. So
Thank you. Thank you for that.
context.
Yes, that's a really good suggestion, Stephen. A really, really good suggestion. So thank you. Yeah, so make sure that we understand. So don't just say great point. Say why you think that was a great point. So that way then we can reflect on that afterwards. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen right now with everybody. And Stephen, I'm just going to ask for you to give me the thumbs up that you can see it.
I can see you.
Okay. Okay. So I'll go ahead and I'll start that recording right now so that we can get it, we can see what Carrie has to tell us. So here I am today with Carrie. Uh, and it is spinning. Is it spinning for you, everybody? Stephen?
Yeah, it's spinning.
Okay, that's fun. Okay. Sorry, everybody. Technicalities, right? Let me make sure I'm still that the internet is all, yep, it's there. So let me look here.
Hey Lee, turn off your camera.
Okay, thank you. I will do that. Let's try it again. Okay, so it is still spinning. And I had downloaded it, but I cannot find it. And it's not here
Hmm.
either. I'm going to stop my share. Hold on, I'll stop. I'm going to stop my share right now. Oh, this is the fun times that I always have with these things. Okay, so let's see. Network caused an error. Okay, so let's try this again. Let me go here. So, okay, here we go. Let's try this again. I can go back to Zoom, share. Okay. So here I am today with Carrie, and I'm just going to interview Carrie. She's a mother of her son, lives in a long-term care community in Illinois, and she's been a very strong advocate for her son, as well as for other people that are living in long-term care. But today's conversation, I really want to focus in on the journey that Carrie has gone through as a mother with a child that needed supportive services. So, Carrie, first of all, welcome and thank you so much for joining me here today. I know we are recording this because you got stuck in New York. Because do you want to share why you went to New York?
I'm the CEO of my son's home, which is part nursing home and part home for people with developmental disabilities. won a national award for innovation um, from McKnight's magazine for people that have been in long-term care for 20 years or more. His name is Michael Brave, and he's actually been in long-term care for about 50 years. And my son lives in probably one of the absolute best homes in the state of Illinois.
That is that's so great to hear as an ombudsman for us to hear that when somebody really feels good about where their loved one lives. So I can only imagine that your son feels the same way. And so first of all, congratulations to Michael on receiving this award because that is really does speak to the testament of how he leads and the leadership that he brings to this long-term care community, which then reflects with the workers and then also reflects on the people that live there. So, congratulations to that. And it sounds like you made a really good care choice for your son. Could you share with us what this was all about? Like, what led your son and this decision to go into long-term care? Tell us your story.
So, for people with IDDs, which is intellectual and developmental disabilities, and his is also very medically complex, the funding source, first of all, is very different than assisted living or skilled. It's under what for him because of his complex history, it is an entitlement program. But so, like most people who go into long-term care, this was never our plan. Let's face it, most of us go in emergently and then we drown.
Yep.
And we went in very emergently. My son broke his leg in two places. On a Saturday morning, he stood up and our in-home caregiver heard his leg crack.
Oh,
And he had a spiral fracture in both bones in the bottom half of his leg, and he was not able to put weight on that for almost 6 months. So out of that he became a two-person transfer. And where I had in-home care, I didn't have enough in-home care to support that. And then on Tuesday evening, I had a massive heart attack 3 days later
oh,
and had to have heart surgery. And while I was in the hospital trying to recover, which was a little harder than the average person, I actually wound up on a ventilator for 9 days. Um, my husband had called the place through the state of Illinois that was funding our in-home caregiver and asked for a temporary increase in hours. So he had help with my son while I was in the hospital.
wow.
And their answer was no. They said that I was no longer capable to be able to provide the care my son needed. And since I was the primary caregiver, they didn't feel it was safe anymore, and they gave us 45 days to find a placement.
Oh my. How did that feel for you, Carrie?
So when I woke up, like I said, I was unconscious for 9 days, and my husband had to tell me this while I was still in the hospital because that 45-day clicker was already going.
Yeah.
Um, I'm like, the state can't steal my kid. And that's what I kept telling people. The state was stealing my kid. Now, understand, he was 25 at the time, and my plan had always been he would live at home. Um,
Hmm.
Lee will tell you I'm not the only parent that of a very complex child, especially with my son and everything he has and has been through. We never, still really don't expect, we expect that I will outlive him. And in some ways, I take comfort in that because he is very dependent on me. And I don't
Hmm.
know how he will adjust if I'm never here.
Right.
So anybody saying they were taking him and making him go live somewhere else was like, over my dead body was my first thought.
Yeah.
I wasn't even strong enough to get my own feet off of bed, but I was already fighting it. And, my husband, my dad, my sister, everyone's like, you can't fight this. There is nothing you can do to stop this. They're like, we will not help you with an appeal. Everyone is adamant. They were going to let this go through because the doctors had been very clear. One of the reasons that I'd had my heart attack really was caregiver fatigue
Oh,
because I had never, I didn't sleep regularly. I, was up and down with him all night. I was the primary caregiver. So I never took care of myself, which is how you
hmm.
have a heart attack at 45 years old.
Yeah.
So then everyone started looking for residential placements. And we got very lucky that I have a friend that used to work for the Epilepsy Foundation as their exec or assistant director, and she knew a lot of people, so she started looking around and she found the home my son is in, and it's called
Okay.
Clinton Manor Living Center.
Mhm.
And she went out to visit and realized she knew a few people on the staff, which was the first step towards anybody, us being comfortable because she knew my son extraordinarily well.
Mhm.
And everything just happened to fall in place. I was not even strong enough to see it until the day we moved him in.
Oh, wow.
I mean, my
Wow.
husband had been there, my friend had been there, all everybody else had been there. I just couldn't do it. And so like I said, I had my heart attack. I believe it was June 16th, and he moved in there on July 30th.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, literally 6 weeks. And it was traumatic in ways that I can't even explain. First of all, I wasn't allowed to drive yet. I still had a few more days before I was allowed to drive. And I felt like, seriously, like I was handing somebody over my kid and I was having to give up control. And at the same time, I'm trying to teach them, how do you take care of him? Because, it was like he's diabetic, and nursing homes, especially back then, don't routinely count carbs, which is what a lot of home diabetics do. And we counted carbs. So I had to teach them how to use all these cheat sheets my husband and I had made to make it simpler for our caregivers. And
Mhm.
how every time we went to the doctor, we just updated it based off of what the doctors wanted for insulin and blood sugars. Um, my son also has severe epilepsy, and I don't even know at that point how many different seizure meds he was on. Um, a couple of them were in a liquid form in a pediatric dose. So you're having to give an adult a lot of medicine to get a pediatric medicine to work for an adult. So then you were also having to give insulin on top of it. And they were very overwhelmed. I couldn't blame them. I was overwhelmed. And, but even from day one, where I didn't see it then, but I see it now, they were as accommodating as any one place could possibly be. Like I said, I wasn't allowed to drive for the first week he was there, and they would send over their transport person to come pick me up and
Oh,
bring me
wow.
to him.
Wow. That is amazing because that is something that you don't typically hear
Right.
for a long-term care
And this was
community.
13 years ago, almost 14.
Wow.
And we were living about 11 miles from where the home was, which anybody who has a loved one in a home knows 11 miles is nothing. In the IDD community, it's even worse. I mean, there's lots of people who live here in Southern Illinois, where I'm at, and have children up in Chicago because that's where
Mhm.
they feel the best care is. So the fact that the distance was so little was absolutely amazing that we found something so close.
Yeah.
Um, I would have told you that we wouldn't have survived a year. I hated it. I hated the people. I hated everything about it.
Yeah.
And I just, I was so hurt. He was so upset that neither one of us could see really Clinton Manor for what it was and what it is.
Yeah. Well, I would think some of this is because you weren't empowered. Your son wasn't empowered to make the choice because you
Correct.
were in a situation where your health was being compromised. And then he knows his mother. He's worried about his mother on top of this. Her health is being compromised. Did it get compromised because she's helping to care for me? Now I've got to move to someplace else out of my home, away from my mother, my family. And I can just imagine how unempowered you all felt at that given
Correct.
time.
And the whole thing it was very difficult.
Yeah.
And it was not easy early on. There were lots of arguments back and forth between myself and the management and even the direct care staff. And including to the point that our caregiver that we had for him at home, we had used to live in central Illinois and had moved to southern Illinois a year earlier. She moved with us.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't just that it was taken from me. She also lost her job.
Hmm.
So she would go over to go visit because she'd been caring for him at this point 5 or 6 years. And she would get in an argument with the nurses or the direct care staff over, no, no, that's not how you do that with him. And I mean, there were points that they would basically throw her out of the room and tell you have to wait in the hall.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so it was really difficult for everybody. But my husband, being who he is, and Lee has met him, will tell you he's the calm, cool, collected one of the bunch here, not me. And I'm the emotional one, always have been, always will be. And it started with that he started working with them and kind of leaving me out of some of the conversation to smooth the waters a little bit and get them to understand that, yes, no, I was going on every doctor's appointment because that's who I am. And I think one of the turning points really was the first time we went to his diabetes doctor, and that doctor was still in Springfield at the time. So, we had an hour and a half ride to Springfield, and it was the transport person, my son and I, and a nurse, because Clinton Manor really wanted his insulin orders changed. And the only way they knew they were getting that done is to send the nurse with me. And then when we got there, the doctor walked in and he didn't know what was going on at the moment. And he looks at Lynn and I, and he looks at these other two people, and he's like, I'm not sure what's going on, but you two are out of here. He's like, until I talk to them and I figure out what's going on, you're not welcome. And
Oh,
threw them
wow.
both out.
Huh.
And that was the first step, I think, of somebody helping me get my empowerment back.
Hmm.
And for anybody here who doesn't know me, Lee will tell you, I'm pretty strong. Not much gets past me, but this really threw me. And it hurt in ways that I didn't even know were possible. Prior to all of this, I had never been away from my son for more than 9 days. And those 9 days, you just heard me say, were while I was in the hospital on a ventilator.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
in 25 years.
So I'm feeling the emotion of what this was for you. And I'm just thinking, here you were in a caregiving mode. This is what your relationship was. This is what your world was purely about being a caregiver for your son, which you were willingly doing, but at the compromising of your own health. Unknowingly, you're not even realizing all of this
Right.
until that catastrophic moment happened with your health. And then all of a sudden, you've got to give it up and trust other people that they're going to care for your son the way you cared for your son, as well as you had this trusted caregiver that was your partner helping you to care for him. So I can't imagine how that would feel. Can you just talk about that caregiving piece? Was that part of that transition where you said you started realizing that you needed to be more empowered?
Um, it's really difficult to give up that control, to
Hmm.
allow somebody else to be that caregiver. Now, I will tell you, I still will say it today, I am his primary caregiver, even today, almost 14 years later. But that role has changed. That doesn't mean I have to be the physical person to help him walk from his desk to the bathroom. I
Hmm.
don't have to be physically the person who gives him the insulin shot. But I am still the person that sits with him and helps him make decisions so that we keep him healthy and, he's not doing something that we're all going to regret.
Right.
But
So I'm hearing two things in that messaging. I just want to back that up. One is that you said, I am still his primary caregiver. And I think that's such a great thing for other people out here that are engaging with us today, to hear, because this is part of why we wanted to talk with family members, to recognize that you still, even though your loved one might live in a long-term care community, doesn't mean that you still are not considered to be a care partner with them. You still are their caregiver, because it's your loved one. And for the long-term care communities to also recognize that as well, that it never
absolutely,
goes away.
it's important even now, 14 years later, that people still recognize and acknowledge I am the primary caregiver for him. They might do the day-to-day grunt work and all the
Hmm.
rest of that. And it's not grunt work, a lot of it's very serious work. But, I'm still mom. I
Right.
still, you know, and the other part of that falls, which is not always common either, is my son's his own guardian. So he has to have somebody help him make a decision a lot of times. There are some
Mm-hmm.
decisions he could easily make on his own, but there are others that he can't. So
Mm-hmm.
I have to be part of that whole.
Sorry, was trying to do something and oops, sorry. Oh my goodness.
You just got to push play.
Yeah, but there's a big edit button in front of it that won't move. So I can hit
Oh,
play. It keeps bouncing back. I'll try to just do this and see what happens. It's not allowing me to.
push the
Unfortunately, this
space bar, Lee.
oh, okay.
So
Thank you.
I have to be part of that whole team of helping him because, what happens if somebody says to him, well, Len, we could take you off this medicine or we could try this, but there's going to be this, this, and this. And if he doesn't understand what that entirely is or what the repercussions of that would be, and he just goes with his instinct of, oh, you mean I can have 3 less shots a day? Sure, we'll get rid of that. So it's
Hmm.
really important that the family is engaged and that the family gets to play as big a role as they can. And by family, I'm not saying you have to be a blood relative. There are
Right.
lots of people that their family is either their domestic partner, their um, neighbor who has been their support system for the last 20 years, or
Hmm.
somebody of clergy. And that is something that we're very big on trying to explain to people is caregiver and family does not have to mean blood.
Right. So true. So true. And I also like what you're saying, where you're talking about that you help him make decisions. You haven't taken away his decisional ability.
No,
You're not being mom where, hey, it's my way or the highway. You're being mom where let's talk this through and you can come to what you want to do as we weigh the pros and the cons. And I'm here to be your sounding
absolutely.
board.
So, um, and I've always, even when he was a child, talked to him about what was going on. He might not have always comprehended it. He might not have always gotten the full extent, but I wanted him to know and him to have some deciding factor 99% of the time. Okay. There have been, a few times here and there where I had to be no, this is how we're doing it, but not often.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important. And so, and one of the very strange examples I'll give with it is so he was a year behind in school, because of his health and everything else. So, no big deal. So, when he was getting ready to turn 18, the only thing he wanted for his birthday was a tattoo. Sure, no problem. So, mom takes him to get a tattoo for his 18th birthday. He's a junior in high school. And the social worker, who I happen to have been really good friends with, calls me and he's like, Carrie, can you explain to me why I have Super Batman in my office? And how the hell do you think I'm going to explain it to every other kid in this high school why their mom is not taking them to get a tattoo for their birthday? And I'm like, Terry, this is not my problem. This is your problem. And even today, I'm that adamant. I mean, the rest of the tattoos he has, and there's 12 total.
Wow.
Clinton Manor has taken him on outings to get every tattoo he has except for that one.
Wow.
Um, the those things he gets to make the decisions. I don't always like what he picks. I don't always like where he picks to put it. As long as he sticks to I've had a few rules that I asked both of my sons to stick to. Nothing from your wrist to your fingertips and nothing from your neck up. As long as they stuck to that, I was really okay. Tattoo anything you
Uh-huh.
want. And, but again, it's about empowering the resident, empowering the person.
Yeah.
And again, and it doesn't just have to be, I'm your family. We have
Hmm.
another resident in our building that I refer to as my new best friend. And she's a couple years older than I am. And she's only been there a couple years, maybe. And she and I have some of the best fun together and we laugh. And, she had some things coming up, which for her ISP, which is just like a care plan. And she was very adamant. She was in a work program and she wanted to retire. She was turning 62 years old. But my dad doesn't want me to. My sister doesn't want me to. So I finally was like, okay, let's talk this through. I went and talked to her, her care coordinator with her, and they got a plan out of it of, okay, they were going to write it all down. So when she had her meeting, she could say to everybody, here, I need you to read this. So she didn't have to verbalize it because every time she tried, she would cry.
Okay.
And so your support person can be
Right.
anybody. And
Yeah.
if they make you comfortable and they are there for you, let them be in whatever sense they can,
Hmm.
especially
Right.
for the residents that are their own guardians,
Yes.
and I am my son's POA. Even I didn't understand that entirely early on. We all think that POA means, oh, I get to make all the decisions because he
Nope.
signed it over. Absolutely not. I get to make
Nope.
zero decisions unless he is physically incapable of making a decision. And I'm going to give you guys an example of how far that goes because I did not understand it. So, like I said, my son has seizures, and for years they were there's been lots of years they were very serious. And at
Hmm.
one point, we were using a nasal medication to stop seizures that he hated. And he would try to refuse the medicine because he could talk during a seizure. And I'm like, oh, hell no. And so I happen to be one of the luckiest people in the world. My house is less than 2 blocks from where his home is. And my husband and
Really?
I bought our house so I could be part of their home. And I am part of their home. It is not just theirs, it's mine too. I'm there that much that
Huh.
I refer to it as our home. So the nurses called me. They're like, he's at about 15 minutes into a seizure and he's refusing the medicine. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, get the medicine ready. I will be there in less than 2 minutes. So I come in the back door because I have a card and I go into his room and he's still saying, no, 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 no. And I'm like, you don't get to make that decision. I do. And I help them by holding him still to give the medicine. And what we found out later on is we all could have gotten in trouble, even though he was in a seizure, which should mean he can't really make a decision because his brain is not quite where it needs to be at that moment. If he can verbalize it, or not even just verbalize it, if you understand they're saying no, that means no, including if you are their guardian. Let's say
Mm.
it's flu shot season and you've already signed the paper for your spouse or your parent to have a flu shot and they have dementia and they are very clearly saying no, whether it's verbalizing it or in any other manner. Legally, the home is not allowed to give it the minute the resident refuses it. They
Well,
still have that right.
we have talked a lot about power of attorneys and guardianship. We have in past meetings, and it is important to know that a POA, a power of attorney for healthcare, does not kick in unless the person is non-decisional. And the key with your son was that he had articulated to you before he even had the seizure that he didn't like this medication. You knew it
Right.
going in. You knew it. And so then here he is now in the situation. You already all know he doesn't like this, and you did it anyway out of the love of a mom, right?
Yes.
But you look at it and you're like, but that's not what he wanted to see happen.
Right.
So
And
that's
and
where.
it's hard, It really is hard. But it is, you know, it's dignity, it's respect, it's autonomy.
Well, and
Autonomy is probably one of the most important things that we overlook in long-term care. You know,
yes, and I hear you offer a lot of autonomy and a lot of respect and a lot of empowerment. I mean, your son has 12 tattoos, and he got 11 of them when he lived in the long-term care community. And that's a testament to the way you approach him, as well as the support that the long-term care community that he is living in, that is his home, chooses to really, they are actively engaging him in what it is that he wants out of his
correct.
world and his life.
And the best way to make that happen is to stop feeling like it's us versus them.
Yeah. So how did
Okay.
you make that transition? How did you wind up making that
It
transition?
it took a long time. I can remember having care coordination meetings and storming out in tears, and my husband having to come get me out of the parking lot to come back inside. Okay. This was not easy. I had, every day of his life, I'd been making decisions since the minute he was born. We knew when he was born something was wrong and, all those things. But the more I saw him starting to blossom,
Hmm.
the more I realized that this was okay. What I didn't realize is I couldn't give him the socialization at home that they could give him.
Huh.
And it wasn't because, oh, he loved going to bingo or sing-alongs or any of that, because he hates all of that. It was because there were all these other people in the building for him to talk to, and that a lot of the staff, especially when he first moved in, were about the same age he was. So he had someone to connect to.
Hmm.
And then he started to, over time, get to know the residents, um, and he learned a lot of compassion out of it. He's always been compassionate, but nothing like what he is today. We had a resident that was there when he moved in, and her name was Mary O. And Mary was known to be a little bit of a klepto. And it wasn't that she was stealing it, she was moving it. She would take it and take it from this room to that room to this room. And don't leave your purse out, because she loved to put money in the soda machine. And it didn't matter if it was a $1 bill or a $100 bill, she was shoving it in the soda machine, because she did get a $100 bill out of somebody's purse one time. So everybody, they had warned me when we moved in about putting things at a level that Mary could get to if it was any value for Lynn, because he was very particular about, here he went from being in a private, in his own room for his whole life, to having to share space. And, there are times that people just walk in, Mary being one of them. So I figured out very quickly, if we kept a jar of candy on his desk, Mary would only take the candy. So we kept a jar of candy on Lynn's desk, because he has this desk for a computer, that had candy on it for Mary every day, as long as she was there. So first of all, Mary moved in there in 1973.
Oh, wow.
Mary owned the place. Okay, there was just no question. Nobody was even quite sure how old she was. Um, there was nobody in the building who didn't love her. She would tell people Lynn was her baby. And I didn't realize how well he had adjusted until Mary had passed. And literally, we knew it was coming, and it unfortunately took quite a few days. And she was on hospice at home, and um, I knew people were around the clock sitting with her, so I'd go in a few times in the evenings and sit with her for an hour here or there to give people a break. And the number of times he came down to sit with Mary taught me a lot. And
Huh.
that was really the factor of, this is his home. And I
Yeah.
think it helped especially for me, made it easier. My younger son, who at that point was living in Chicago early on, was like, Mom, this is good for him. There's people to do things with him. Why are you upset? And no, neither one of us were thrilled with the care, because we thought for sure it had to be better. There's no way this was the best of the best.
Hmm.
Well, I learned a lot of things over the years, especially during COVID.
Hmm.
And first of all, your expectations need to be um, reasonable. And moving into long-term care, it's very difficult to have reasonable expectations, because we want nothing but excellence.
Hmm.
And
Right.
excellence doesn't exist for the most part. You're going to get excellence here and there, but we need to be reasonable about what we expect. I'm
Hmm.
not saying that we should accept neglect or abuse or lack of care at any level, because we shouldn't. We should be
Right.
fighting for it, reporting it, whatever we need to do. But we also need to respect those that are there doing the work.
Hmm.
The fact that, especially today, one of the things I'm told often is, stop moving him. unless you absolutely have to, do not help move him because I have compressed discs in my back and they're pretty sure it's from helping move him. So, it's even now, it's still difficult for me to be there and say to somebody, hey, and even today, he's still a two-person transfer, even though he can bear weight on both legs. It's safer for everybody,
Mhm.
especially if he was to have a seizure while he's on his feet, which happens a lot too. And even now, it's still a little hard for me some days to say, hey, guys, he needs to go to the bathroom. Can somebody help him and make sure you get a second? And there are other days that if I feel good and all the rest of it, and I know that he's in a stronger place for the day, I'll be like, hey, I just need one of you today.
Mhm.
And we have to learn to appreciate our staff.
Yeah, I think that's really because they become an extension of the love that you want that you're showing your son. The love and the care that you show your son. They become that extension, and you've got to really have such a different level of trust for these people. The trust that you have.
And you have to let them in. And it took a long time. I mean,
Hmm.
our executive director, and again, his home is unlike, I need to really clarify, and Lee can help with this. His home is not the norm, okay, guys? I wish everybody had what my son has.
Yeah.
Our CEO has been there his entire career. His mom owned it first. So literally forever. Our
Yeah.
executive director and our director of nursing both have been there more than 25 years, and they are sisters. So it's very different, and it's a small home. So there's a lot of family, and because we're in a small community, we have a lot of long-term staff. We are
Mhm.
definitely that way for retention as staff goes, way far above the actual national average. Um,
But I would think some of it is because of the environment that's been created.
Correct. It's because of the culture that's been
Yes,
created that the employee comes first. Because if you don't take care of your employee, they're not going to take care of your resident.
absolutely.
And it is done 100% right in our home. And, I do a lot of advocacy now for long-term care. And as I've been trying to learn and understand, I'm very lucky. Our CEO has said to me, do you want to see the books? I will show you the numbers and show you what it is so you understand it better. None of us are going to hear that anywhere else. Um,
Right.
but so as that culture builds, it needs to build through the building. You know, if the but the management has to show it and has to truly mean it for it to work with, for the upper management to work with the middle management, for the middle management to work with everybody else. And you need to respect everybody else the same way, whether it is the housekeeper, the laundry person, the maintenance person, I don't
Right.
care who they are. Learn their name, treat them with respect, and they will
Hmm.
treat you with respect. So, shortly after the peak of the pandemic, I don't even remember exactly when, they had done a day and a half employee retreat training. So, what they did was they divided the staff in three, and each group had half of a day, and maybe it was four, to come and go through all these different mini sessions to learn and to
Uh-huh.
and so they had asked me if I would come and sit on a family resident panel to talk about what it was like to be there and just let the staff hear us. So we did this, 4 times in 2 days. And like 2 weeks later, one of our maintenance men comes up to me and he says, hey, I want to have a calamari lunch with Lynn. And I'm like, huh? He's like, I heard you mention during that panel discussion that Len loves calamari. He's like, I love it. He says it would be great. He's like, I'll even pay for it if you can just go and pick it up and bring it back because Olive Garden is like 25 minutes from us. So I'm like, sure, no problem. And, so we finally figure out when, and, then we argue because no, I'm not taking your money. I got it. It's fine. And I bring him back lunch, and the two of them sat there and ate, it's the little bitty things that matter.
Yes. So
Okay.
true.
It is, the staff person who stopped at McDonald's on the way into work to get their coffee and decided they really know you love iced coffee, so they brought one for your loved one. But at the same term, strongly work with your administrators to make sure they let you celebrate your staff. Okay. There are homes that have a zero acceptance policy on any kind of gift of any nature from a family member. Thank God ours
Yeah.
is not one. I've done everything from providing an Easter brunch for the staff, and trust me, it's too much work. They appreciated it tremendously. I also did the residents that day on our side, so I really went ridiculously overboard. But whether it's cookies or pizza or 6-foot subs, it doesn't matter. Even if it's just thank you, and probably thank you is the most important part next to knowing their name, because they don't hear it enough. They need to know they're appreciated. If you know a staff person and you can look at them and tell they're having a bad day, tell them it's okay. Stand there for them as much as they stand there for your loved one. And because in the end, they become their family too. And it's one of the other things that is done right in our building. In the time that Lynn's been there, I can think of at least 3 or 4 staff members that have passed away.
Oh,
2 from cancer, 1 from a very traumatic accident. And they made sure that every one of our residents had the opportunity to go to those funerals if they wanted to, because they knew how our residents felt about the staff person.
wow.
And,
That's wonderful.
and we're like I said, we live in a very small community. So if their funeral is done in our community, literally we just take a parade of wheelchairs over, because it's 2 blocks, unless it's so cold that you can't do it that way. But it's important to let each other be part of each other's family. If the administration has the us versus them mentality, everybody else will. And so those us versus them mentalities don't work in anybody's world for this.
Right. Yeah, they don't. And so I am, the way you're talking about the staff and the residents and everybody all becoming one as family, what do you think is a secret sauce there? What creates that?
Our CEO,
So the leadership.
the
It's
leadership, he
leadership
walks the building regularly. He knows the residents' names. He knows what they like. There's a lot about our building that's very unique compared to the average. And part of the reason he does it is because it's better for everybody. It's better for him, his staff, and his residents. How annoyed does every maintenance man get when they have to change a TV every time somebody moves a room? And they have to unhook the TV, and if it's mounted, take the mount down, move the TV, da 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 da. How much time are they spending? And money, labor. So ours has figured out that it's just a lot easier to put a TV in every room, because then when you move somebody, you're not moving TVs. They're all the same. They all work. It doesn't matter whose is what. And there's still a few people that have their own TV, and as they quit, they're just replacing them and asking the family not to. But at the same time, when we have events, he's there, and it's not like he's unaccessible. Our CEO and our executive director are very accessible. Families have their cell phone numbers. Nobody is ever, oh my God, don't call, all the rest of it. And again, we live in a small community, so our executive director, I live 2 blocks in one direction, she lives 2 blocks in the opposite direction. And a lot of our staff lives in this community. So again,
there's pride.
There is pride. There is also that connection of, it was when the pandemic first started, and everybody's panicking to get their hands on anything and everything they needed. And my husband and I took the attitude of, if we had it, we were going to share it. And, so the nurses, especially the nurses who were working 15, 18 hours some days, just trying to get things situated in the building, One of them at one point was like, oh my God, I can't find toilet paper anywhere. I'm like, just stop by on your way to work. We have plenty. Because I live less than 2 blocks away, they all know where my house is. I tell
Uh-huh.
every brand new employee when I meet them who I am and where my house is. And that is my choice.
Hmm.
But they
Yeah.
all know that my front door is open and they're welcome anytime.
So
And
I'm
my,
anticipating a couple of questions from people who might be,
go
part of
ahead.
our meeting today. And one of the questions would be, first of all, how many people live in this long-term care community that your son lives in?
So on the skilled nursing side, they're licensed for 34 beds.
Okay.
And then on the ICFDD side, they're licensed for 51 beds and they probably have a waiting list of 200. And
Wow.
that's without ever advertising. They don't advertise our ICFDD at all because
So,
they
and your
can't.
son is on the ICFDD side.
Correct. Because it's full. And the same thing with the skilled nursing. I shouldn't say both sides usually have a very large waiting list.
Wow. That's one and that is a testament to the type of care that your son is receiving and the
Yes.
staff and the leadership and all of those types of things. So, what would you say? What would be the word of advice that you would give for anybody who is coming to that choice and that decision? My loved one needs to move into a long-term care community, um, and this is really difficult for me. What would you feel would be that words of advice to make it better for them?
Um, if you have the time to spend time in the community first, do so.
Okay.
Um,
Even though you didn't get to do that, you still would say that that's important to do.
yes, but my husband did it. Our very close friend did it.
Uh-huh.
But you know, and be realistic when you're even if you're going through to tour it, okay? Horse and pony shows are just that. And there are lots of places that know how to make something shine.
Right.
You need to learn how to look past what the shiny, beautiful little gold, somebody said to me, you can put a chandelier in every bathroom and make every room look better. I don't care if you got a chandelier in the bathroom or not. Do you have
Right.
hand soap and
Yeah.
paper towels?
So,
Do
and
they
some of the buildings that I've been in that have had the best culture have been homes that are they're nothing to, they're not beautiful.
Ours
They're
is not
just,
beautiful.
they're,
It was
yes.
built
And
in
you don't need that.
1960. It was built in 1960, so it was built in a hospital model. It
Uh-huh.
is still looks like it was built in 1960, but how many homes do you know of that will like like so we live very close. So once or twice a year, my husband and I like to have 5 to 7 residents over at a time and do a cookout and ride a bonfire or whatever, depending on the weather. And they facilitate it. They make sure, and they'll send a staff person or two with them to make sure everyone's well cared for. Especially the residents that they are their own guardians, they have no issue about as long if they ask my husband and I for help, there is this none of that. Oh no, 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 you can't do that. Because they are their own guardians. They're allowed to ask whoever they choose for help, whether that help is I need somebody to help me with my pizza, and I feed lots of residents in our building because they ask, to, hey, will you just sit here with me and let's just talk? And there's no
Mhm.
issue about me going in. And I'll give you a story that is as heartbreaking as it is an example of how deeply embedded I am into this home. So during the pandemic, we were all locked out, and then they started compassionate care visits.
Uh-huh.
And Lee will tell you, I worked very close with IDPH to make this happen for everybody across the state.
And we will be doing another meeting on that. I want to make sure everybody's aware. We're going to be
Right.
talking about compassionate caregivers, and I'll be talking with Carrie about that because she's really led that in our state. And also nationally, she's been involved in those discussions. So be looking for that in the future. A meeting to
So
talk about
we had
compassionate
this little
care.
room up in the front that they were using for visitors, and that was the only place people were allowed to visit. Well, I was adamant I was going to go clean his room because I had been in it over a year. It was needed cleaned. So, okay, I knew the rules well enough to, hey, Cheryl, it says that I'm allowed to do this. So she calls public health just to make sure so nobody gets in trouble. And okay, we make arrangements when I'm coming. They will take his roommate out of the room so I can go in and clean. So I come
Mhm.
out through the curtain. I'm full PPE. So, half the time you can't even tell who the person is when they're in full PPE. But there's a
That's
resident.
that. Just for everybody to know, those are when you're wearing the gown and the mask and all of that that we were all having to do way back in
Right.
COVID. So people
So I
understand.
come through the curtain and there's a resident sitting in the big group room. And there's another one way over, everyone's more than 6 feet apart. And I look at him like, oh my God, hi, Neil. And the minute I said it, the resident grabbed me. And it wasn't just grab me, it was hold on, wanting a hug. So what do you do out of instinct? You start hugging them. And then
Uh-huh.
somebody from the staff came in and like, Carrie, you know better. And I was already crying by that point just because of Neil and the fact that it'd been a year since I was able to hug anybody in this building besides my own son. And even that was iffy some days. And that's when I realized how important any one of us can be in a building.
Uh-huh.
Because I was telling Lee before we started recording, we had a resident pass away 2 weeks ago unexpectedly while I was out of town. And I was very heartbroken to hear that she had passed away, but unfortunately in our world that's common. But the harder part for me became realizing her mom was the only other really regular visitor in our building. And to realize that I am now the only parent, and granted, in our side it's different, and in our world, but even so, just as a visitor, I am back to being the only regularly consistent
Uh-huh.
visitor in our building. They all have some people sporadically, but Ida and I were, the 4 and 5 times a week people
Hmm.
that every resident knew who we were. And as hard as this is for the residents, and I know it is because they've already started saying something to me, how hard it is for me to know that, no matter how good they are, there's still people make mistakes. There's still days that, oh my God, why is he here? And, it helps to have somebody to vent to. And
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I don't have that now,
Yeah.
and so it's just as important, besides knowing your staff and knowing your residents, if you can get to know your families.
Yeah, that's good advice.
I mean, my best friend I met there, and
That
she and
is
I have
really
been
good
through
advice.
thick and thin together, from everything from I sat with her when her son passed, literally for 2 days. And I know if the tables are turned, she'll be the first person to sit there with me.
Hmm. Yeah.
So it is, we all hope when our loved one goes into long-term care that it's a short visit. And,
Hmm.
for some of you, it will be, maybe they're just there for rehab or whatever other reason. But as hard as it is, make the best of what it is. Why you're there, because if you decide you're miserable, everybody else is miserable, and they will tell you I made them very miserable.
Well, I know COVID really presented a lot of challenges for you, and I look forward to hearing about those challenges and what motivated you to be the person that you are to do what it is that you're doing now. So I look forward to that conversation coming down the line. So just in closing here right now, I would like to know what would be like, what's the single most important thing, message that you could give to everybody that's listening to us today? What's the single most important thing?
Be
I love what
compassionate.
you're saying about the families. I think that that's a message I never heard before, for families and families to get connected, because that is a really good support that you could give
Right.
to each other. But I'm sorry I interrupted.
You're fine. Be compassionate. It
Okay, that's
really,
important.
whether it is with your executive director, your director of nursing, or your loved one, or the person that's putting the laundry away, even though 4 times in a row they've put it in the wrong drawers, they're not putting it where you want it. They're also putting
Mhm.
laundry away for 60 or 100 other people. You know, compassion, empathy, just try not to be mean. And I will tell you, I was. I mean, people used to tell new nurses, be really careful. Now people tell nurses, She's fabulous. Just tell her the truth because she won't accept anything else. And it is. We've had some major mistakes over the years. Everybody will, especially when you're somewhere for 14 years. Okay.
Yeah.
But when people are honest with you about the mistake and you then get to be part of the how the mistake is fixed to make sure it never happens again, that's a big deal. And if you're
Yes.
working with them right, they're going to work with you.
Yeah, I'm hearing that it truly is. I mean, families need to grow and learn how to communicate and work with each other and all of that as well. So I'm really hearing a lot of that family messaging. It's the same thing. Be compassionate with each other, understand where people are coming from at that given moment. Know that not everyone's going to do things the way you want to see it done all the time. And sometimes it's a matter of amplifying your voice a little bit. And sometimes it's a matter of just saying, having that compassion and that empathy. They've got 100 people they're putting clothes away. So they don't remember that this is where my son wants his clothes and all that
Correct.
sort of stuff. So
And,
that's important.
and candies and cookies and um, some baked goods now and then go a long way, especially in the holidays. Really, even more so in the holidays than ever. These people
Hmm.
are giving up, even though they know it when they sign up for these jobs, to know that you're working every Christmas for the rest of your life
Yeah,
is a
right.
big deal.
And they're not spending it with their own natural family. They're spending it with this extended family, but it still is hard. They're
And the
leaving their
odds
children
are
at home.
correct.
They're
And the
leaving their
odds are that
spouses at
somewhere in the
home.
midst of this, they've also spent some of their own money to making sure that some resident had something that they knew a resident wanted or needed. And that goes on a lot
Mhm.
that people don't realize what staff does for residents.
Right.
Um, I guess probably the most important thing, like I said, Lee told you all, I'm in New York because the CEO of my son's home received a very big national award. He received that award because I suggested to our HR and our executive director, guys, we should nominate Michael for this award. They didn't even know about it. And, and I was very adamant about, please, let's do this.
Yes,
So,
that's wonderful that it was driven by a family member. That's wonderful.
and if you have those opportunities for something to acknowledge somebody, do it.
Hmm. Well, thank you, Carrie. I really appreciate you opening up and being honest with us about your journey through long-term care. And I can't wait. One of these days, I will be getting there with you, and maybe we'll be able to work something out. We'll talk after this. But I really want to go and spend some time with you and your son and really get to really embrace the culture of the home that your son lives in.
Okay.
So I'm going to thank you again, and I'm just going to stop the recording right now. So thank you. Well, I know that we are at our time when the meeting is ended, and I'm sorry that that went on long, but I'm just wondering if there were any reactions from anybody, anything in the chat, Stephen, that you feel would be important for us to share.
Sorry, it took me a second to get my um, headphones unmuted. I don't see anything. I mean, Karen's dropped a lot of information in the chat.
Okay,
There's no questions. There's one comment that I think would be better to discuss off
got
uh
it. Yep.
offline, but
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
that's all.
Well, I'm just hoping that everybody really just heard that the purpose of having interviewing family members for these meetings is to help us learn from each other. And so I just felt that, having to hear from a mother, many times it's the other way, or it's us as children that our parents are moving into long-term care or our partners. But to hear from a mother who had to go through this experience, I thought was an important thing for us all to hear. I thought she really shared some really great advice. Share this with other people that are going through this process. I think that this can be really important for people to understand. And just some of the messaging that she had was really, really great. I do want to be respectful of everybody's time. I know we are out post time right now, but if anybody, I'm going to stop the recording, but we'll continue just to meet at the end in case anybody does want to say anything after I've ended the recording. But so I will go ahead and I'll stop it now.